Hey, welcome to Film Fanatics, three film geeks discussing movies both new and old. My name is Dan.
My name is Justin.
And I'm Joe.
This week, Ethan Hunt is back in his latest Mission Impossible. Ed Helms heads up a National Lampoon Vacation revival. We go to The Paper Towns. Dragonball Z revives Frieza, and we review a transgender love story in Boy Meets Girl. With Tom Cruise back as Ethan Hunt, our top five is going to look at our favorite Cruise performances. And for our older films, we take a look at the new Rogue cut of X-Men Days of Future Past for a new classic, and Joe's old classic pick, Dark City. There's no Oscar A to Z this week because we are up to one of the all-time greats, Back to the Future, and we're actually going to do the trilogy as a mini-sode, also kind of coinciding with the 30th anniversary, too, which is cool.
Oh, yeah.
So instead of just doing the one film here, we're going to review all three in a mini-sode. So let's get it started with Mission Impossible Rogue Nation. Pretty healthy $56 million opening weekend for this one, and Justin's going to tell us about it.
Tom Cruise returns for the fifth time round as Impossible Mission Force, or IMF, agent Ethan Hunt, as their team gets shut down by the CIA, led by Alec Baldwin, when it is deduced that their success is likely a result of good luck rather than their own effectiveness. Now a rogue agent, Ethan slowly begins enlisting the help of his former teammates Benji Dunn, played by Simon Pegg, William Brandt, played by Jeremy Renner, and Luther, played by Ving Rhames, as well as the mysterious Ilsa Faust, played by newcomer to the series Rebecca Ferguson, to track down a rogue organization known as the Syndicate, whose team may be as good as they are.
Not ripping off James Bond at all.
I was thinking Fury 6 myself, but...
It's parallels.
But Rogue Nation finds the happy medium between the tongue-in-cheek fun I loved from Ghost Protocol and an intense yet engrossing storyline, such as Mission Impossible 3. Both have their advantages and disadvantages, but this one really finds a solid balance between the two. While this one I thought took its time setting things up and building the stakes, it really let the action complement the drama, and even in some regards, during action sequences, even establishing character development. We really see how ruthless Ethan Hunt gets in the state of affairs in this one, and it really makes for some of the most compelling action sequences in the entire franchise. Unfortunately, this is still not without some hammy delivery at times, and more than a couple moments. I thought the storyline got fairly predictable, but I think that's partially because after 5 Mission Impossible movies, we know what to expect. Trust no one, this message will now self-destruct. We know the deal. You're either on board or you're not. And I have no problem saying that Rogue Nation is by far my favorite of the franchise. I hope the next one can be as good as this one. I leave with an A-.
By far your favorite of the franchise. Bold statement.
What's your second? Was it Ghost Protocol?
It's probably still Ghost Protocol.
Joe, how did Rogue Nation grab you?
Well, it's interesting that Justin pointed out something which I guess I'll have to sort of disagree with going into my review. I did enjoy this movie. I thought it flowed fairly well for the most part. It did drag at some spots, maybe with the story getting a little too overpounded and just... I don't want to say convoluted, but it seemed like there was so much detail based on everything that we already know is going to happen. It's basically recycling all the old movies to some degree, but that's kind of the joke of Mission Impossible. I think some of these characters, we have actors that have been playing them for a while. I mean, Tom Cruise, Ethan Hunt, he just goes in and he just becomes this guy, and he has fun doing it. I really did like the action a lot. I thought that the villain was pretty good. I did enjoy the stunts. I liked the humor. It was a good mishmash of things that I like from Mission Impossible, but I'm not entirely sure if I liked the balance that you mentioned. I mean, I know what you're saying, there was some of that, but I kind of felt like the movie was a little too divided between trying to capitalize on the best aspects of the two previous films. Because we had this dark, gritty storyline in this Mission Impossible 3, but we also had a lot of the kooky humor and goofiness from Ghost Protocol. I get why they tried to combine that. It certainly makes sense, but I didn't feel like it was quite as well balanced. I kind of would like to pick one direction or the other, maybe with sprinkles of one or the other, but it just felt like they were trying to do both, and it didn't always jive for me. Still, for the most part, it was very entertaining, and with the exception of just some slow build-up at the beginning, I thought it was a very entertaining summer blockbuster, and I, too, leave it with an A-. My favorites are still, actually, I prefer...
3's probably your favorite,
3's my favorite, and Ghost Protocol is my second favorite.
Okay.
I actually preferred both those movies to this one by a little bit.
Well, certainly a lot has been made in the news about Cruise doing his own stunts in these movies. We saw it, in Ghost Protocol where he's on the tall building.
I want to ask, since you're bringing it up. is it true the plane thing was real?
Oh yeah,
The plane thing was 100.
and they did like 5 or 6 takes of it too.
And like
to get it right.
I just have to say, like, just right there, Tom Cruise is dedicated. He's getting up there, and he
Exactly.
still does it. It's awesome.
Yes.
It's really awesome.
And that really does speak to, first of all, his dedication to the character, and really his dedication to the craft. You know, not the film, the craft of action.
Maybe he likes it. I don't know.
There you go.
We don't know. But, I mean, other than Angelina Jolie, I can't think of another super A-lister that is doing their own stunts. And these stunts are just off-the-wall crazy.
Tough.
The plane, the underwater sequence with the safes and everything, and that rotating mechanism. But anyway, what sets this movie, and Ghost Protocol as well for that matter, apart from, say, a Bond movie, is that collaboration. They've put together this great team, you know, him and Simon Pegg, and Ving Rhames, and everybody, Jeremy Renner, everybody's playing off each other very well, and I think they have it down the best here because they've done it a few times now. But this is not my favorite of this series either. My favorite is Ghost Protocol. This one's probably second, I would say. But again, you know, we've got the cool gadgets, the really good chase scenes, the action sequences are really cool. But it is a bit predictable. You sort of know going into it, okay, this is what's going to happen. And I don't know that I ever really fear for Ethan Hunt. I mean, I feel like, Justin, you mentioned Fast and Furious. You know, Fast and Furious isn't afraid to murder a person on the team once in a while. And and same with James Bond, obviously, Skyfall.
Definitely.
You know, I can't say that for a second I think anyone on this team's in peril.
I thought Ferguson was in danger quite a bit, actually.
She's not really part of the core team.
New Edition, yeah. Well, to be fair, that's what I'm saying. Like,
you know,
they want to make these movies fun and goofy, I think, because Ghost Protocol was such a big success. But
yes,
to add some sort of gravitas like that, like to kill off Simon Pegg, admittedly, that would probably be really effective because the people love the character.
Correct.
But they would never do that.
Right.
You can't do that.
Right, you can't do it. So I actually leave Rogue Nation with a B+. I would like to watch it again because I can see raising it, but because it's not quite for me on the level of a Ghost Protocol, which I did give an A- to, I'll leave it with a B+.
It's not necessarily about death. It's more or less about
peril.
How much do we actually care about these characters? I think one of the best things this movie has going for it is the dynamic between Cruise and Pegg. Pegg sort of became this like sort of side character in 3 that was just a little quirky. 4 became a bigger deal. 5, he's probably as important to the story as Cruise is.
You know what? I want to add to that, Justin. I have to say, I'm a big Simon Pegg fan, you know, all the way back to Spaced. I really love everything the guy does, but really here, he's proving what a good actor he really is. Because you've seen him just so many different films, usually comedic, but still various different types of comedic and some drama as well. So, Justin, I wanted to ask you. Dan will appreciate this. Is this the right? Is this the right amount of Alec Baldwin? Because I thought this was fine, perfect Baldwin.
I'll be honest. It's Alec Baldwin being Alec Baldwin,
which is fine, right? Right.
I gotta be honest, Baldwin did nothing for me in this movie.
I couldn't agree more. I thought it was flat.
To me, I'm not saying he's flat in it. I don't think he really added it. It could have been played by anyone. Easily. And to be honest,
he's standard Baldwin.
On the heels of Aloha, where he basically played the same character, I just feel like, what's the point?
I did forget that movie.
Everyone does.
So that's a good point.
But I mean, he
was a little angry
exact same character.
Maybe a little more cartoony. A little bit in
they're about even.
They're about even for me. Honestly, I'm with Justin on this. It was not my favorite part of the movie for sure.
What about the one scene?
I'll be honest.
I thought that scene was great, personally.
I'll be honest. That scene would have worked so much better if I hadn't called it like 5 minutes ahead of time.
It's a pretty predictable film in general.
It is,
which is also why it's a B+ and not an A- for me. Ghost Protocol, I thought, was a little bit more mysterious in its.
Here's where I'll give the movie
delivery.
Credit. Unlike Ghost Protocol, this one actually had a tangible villain. Ghost Protocol is sort of like, we're having fun, but we need a villain. Okay, we're on Act 3. We're going to throw him in for about 20 minutes. Here he is.
I will say something, though. Justin has a point. As awesome as Ghost Protocol is, it has the least memorable villain.
You're right.
Like, I was thinking about it. I don't even remember the villain at all.
I don't remember 2 either, but that's because I haven't seen it in a long time.
The thing is, though, Dan, 2 is bad, but I remember the villain. He's pretty over the top.
Well, the best villain
is Hoffman.
Obviously.
Still Owen Davian, yeah.
You know, but
yeah.
I agree, but I just think that 4 is kind of lacking in the villain
You're right.
department.
This one does have a better villain, I suppose, than 4.
Though, isn't he kind of also sort of run of the mill by this point. Kind of. They've kind of recycled that idea a few times in the movies before as well. I think even in the first one, kind of.
Sort of ish. The first one takes itself personally way too seriously. Whoa. It tries way too hard to imitate the show. So everything sort of has like a 60s retro vibe.
True. But, I mean, that was what the show was about. I mean, not everything has to turn the genre on its ear, Starsky and Hutch style.
Ooh, my.
And, you know what I mean? And do a comedic... I mean, it worked for 21 Jump Street, but not every dramatic or action series from the 60s. I mean, look at The Fugitive. They didn't do that with a bunch of yucks. They did that like the series was. And I think that's all Mission Impossible was trying to emulate. You're right.
It's just interesting how the franchise has grown and changed direction. What do you think has caused the improvement? Because is it like, I wouldn't say it's like Fast and Furious where it's like getting bigger and better.
I think that's part of it, and I think that superhero movies are part of it. I mean, successful action movies today, look at Jurassic World, they have fun with themselves.
I agree.
And, I mean, the first Jurassic Park honestly had a lot of fun with itself too, which is probably why it was so successful. But, like, the DC movies take themselves seriously, but other than those, Taken's probably the last action movie
really
that didn't have
a really
good comedic undertone to it.
You're right. There's a lot of goofiness now with action movies,
well, because they're all PG-13 and they want little kids to go see them.
Exactly.
Which is probably brings in the whole controversy with the R-rated action movies of the day.
Correct.
That's interesting.
Yeah, I definitely think there's a better balance in Ghost Protocol.
I thought so.
I will admit, you're right, Justin. The villain in Ghost Protocol isn't great.
Virtually non-existent.
It's got that going for it. I don't know. I mean, that's why I want to watch Rogue Nation again. I feel like I remembered more of Ghost Protocol, like the scenes and some of the cool gadgets and stuff, like obviously the building thing, but the screen, the computer screen thing.
Yeah.
I don't know. I feel like I liked a lot of the stunts and action scenes better in Ghost Protocol.
That's what I'm saying. In Ghost Protocol, I feel like there's more memorable scenes. I mean, here, there was a cool motorcycle chase. I'll give you that. But other than the plane and the water tank,
I'll be honest. It was it was the opera scene that truly blew me away.
I mean, I thought the opera scene was well done, but it was, to me, pretty standard fight scene in an action movie. Yes, in my mind, I thought that's cool that Cruise is doing this himself. I'll give you that. But in terms of, is it a really memorable scene? Not really.
Was it the same spectacle as climbing a massive skyscraper or dangling off a plane several thousand feet in the air? No, but I feel like there was structure to it. I thought there was drama to it. I thought there was a lot more components than just mere spectacle.
Right, but I'm saying you leave these movies remembering the spectacle and the gadgets, I think.
That's what most people probably go looking for and come out with, to be fair.
I mean, the thing I remember most about that scene, Justin, is the cool book that Simon Pegg had that took away the words so he could see the code.
That's true, but it also becomes sort of a gimmick.
Well, it's kind of...
Have you ever seen the show? I mean, the gadgets were the gimmick of the show.
To be fair, I never did actually.
Oh, okay. Well, that's what set it apart from the other action shows of the day, was the cool spy gadgets. All right, well, definitely another good addition to the franchise. Next up, we have Vacation. And Joe, let's go to you for that.
I forgot to do a synopsis, but it doesn't really matter, because Ed Helms is the...
Grown-up Rusty, who is Chevy Chase's son, and this is basically a sequel/reboot of the original Vacation franchise, kind of. I'd say it's certainly a sequel because they reference the original enough and his trips to Wally World with pictures of Chevy Chase and stuff, so it's certainly a sequel.
I mean, they kind of try to say, I guess they're trying to reinvigorate it, so I'll confess, though, I mean, I don't know if I'm the best qualified person to talk about this movie, because... The only Vacation movie I think I've seen all the way one was the Vegas one.
Okay.
And so
not a great entry.
But I mean, that was when I was young, so I have very limited knowledge of this. But I know some of the Christmas scenes, which are funny.
Sure.
That's about it. But yeah, this one basically is about him trying to relive his child trip, trying to go to Wally World, takes his disgruntled family, his wife's upset, his older son is kind of, I guess he's described as being effeminate. He's a big softy, apparently. He likes to read a lot. And they make fun of him for that. Though he's bullied by his little brother, who's a complete horrible human being. Don't know how they got away with that. And basically, it's about the hijinks that ensue as they go across the country. It's like the Vacation, except it seems to be a variety of cruel and disgusting jokes that sometimes work. And sometimes they really don't. And that the thing that's frustrating is that I know that this movie is probably missing the point, but there are some scenes that do work. And I think that's mostly because the performers are giving it their all. There's definitely some energy there, and there's some chemistry, and I do like some of the family dynamic. And like I said, some of the scenes are interesting, but a lot of the stuff in the trailer that they showed obviously was predictable, so we saw.
Sure.
Yep.
But to be fair, a lot of the jokes they showed in the trailer weren't that good. So my expectations weren't that high. So I was surprised that I actually laughed quite a bit in this movie. Does that make me a horrible person? I don't know. Now, half the time, I was laughing at the genuine humor. Sometimes I was laughing because of how bad it was or how cruel it was. And I'm like, I can't believe they're trying to do this. So it's a very, very strange experience. But it just seems so mean at its core that I can't really give it a positive grade. But I did laugh quite a bit in it. I'm going to leave it a C+.
Okay.
Actually. It almost comes together like, okay, just to give you an example. Then they go to Texas and they meet Chris Hemsworth and Leslie Mann. I thought that was funny. There was some stupid stuff.
Yeah.
But like there were some scenes that they're just showing off Chris. I thought it was funny. It's just so lowbrow. I don't know how to take
tacked
it.
on.
Here's the thing, Joe.
I don't.
I think there is quite a good bit of funny comedy in this movie.
Okay, so it wasn't
you
just
have
me.
to seek it out though, because here's the problem.
Uh-huh.
Only about, I would say, 60% of the jokes work.
Okay.
But
Wow.
a third of those 60% are like really laugh out loud moments.
I agree.
And I know Justin's going to hate this movie. I can't wait to hear his big F for this movie. But I'm sorry. I laughed a lot in this movie.
Yeah.
And I knew that it was lowbrow. But, there's a difference between, say, a Sandler lowbrow and another actor lowbrow. I agree with you. I think Ed Helms
I loved him
and
in this.
Christina Applegate plays the wife.
Yeah.
I think that they hold it together very well. They play off of each other very well. Now, Ed Helms sort of has he sort of has two modes. One is the D-bag, guy that he played in We're the Millers type, the drug dealer, I'm better than you kind of thing. And then the put upon everyman that he played in The Office. And
Best character.
certainly he does a good job with The Office. Yeah. Certainly he's, the put upon dad here. But I don't know. I thought it was funny. I agree. The Hemsworth stuff was good. But I will say this about the movie. I think it goes downhill the longer it goes. By the time I would say they got to the whitewater rafting scene.
Oh.
From there on,
Right.
It was like, I didn't laugh that much,
Let me
honest.
Hang on.
That's kind of a good example of the movie for me.
Mm-hmm.
There were some aspects of it that were funny, but it was so mean-spirited that it was almost kind of depressing.
Yeah.
So and I found myself fluctuating within the scene.
I don't typically laugh at the, quote-unquote, depressing humor. The rapid scene where he finds out, about his girlfriend
And
he's
trying to kill himself, and it's supposed to be funny.
Correct.
I thought that was not funny.
No, I didn't think that was funny either. So you're right. I think the movie has a hard time figuring out what is funny and why. Because some things are funny. I thought, when he finds out that Christina Applegate was, big slut in college as she created the Chug Run. I liked that scene. I thought that was funny. But that wasn't necessarily mean-spirited, per se.
Not that one. No.
And I like when they couldn't figure out the car and all the different buttons. I thought that was clever.
I thought the car was hilarious.
Yeah. It's funny. I sort of liken it to a movie we reviewed it on last year's show, which came out almost the same week of the year, and that's Let's Be Cops. Let's Be Cops is not a good movie. It's not written well, but the two leads were really giving it their all, and there's a lot of genuine laugh-out-loud moments in that movie.
That's a good comparison, because I felt very similar about Let's Be Cops.
Yeah. So I'm definitely not quite as high as you, Joe. It's a C for me. Justin?
Maybe I'm going to grade this too high, but I laughed too much.
It's a little high, but my C is probably down. Whatever, I don't care. I laughed. It's what a comedy is supposed to do, make you laugh.
Made me laugh, man.
Yeah. All right, Justin, let's hear it.
Well, this is another case of just because a filmmaker knows he or she is standing on the shoulders of giants doesn't excuse them for making a terrible movie. Sure, the original had some morbid humor, some foul language, sex, but there was a certain aura of family innocence that I honestly feel like audiences could relate to. The New Vacation, here's their mindset. Hey, let's do it because we can in the most disgusting and offensive way humanly possible and hope we get some laughs. Every scene basically feels like a deleted scene that they put up there and hope to God that something worked. Some I chuckled at, I'm not going to deny that. Others are horrible. Helms is truly trying to keep this movie together. He's giving it his all. I feel horrible that he's putting this much effort in a movie this disturbingly mean-spirited, with jokes including, but not limited to, disabilities, minorities, and my personal favorite, suicidal depression. There's just not that much to save. This is a disaster. I hope this goes down in history as one of the worst reboots ever made. I leave with a D-.
Yeah! Knew it. I literally would have stopped the show and called it a day if you gave it anything D or higher. I know, it's not good, but a comedy
it's horrible.
Makes you laugh. If it makes you laugh, I think it succeeds at its number one mission. Now, the grade fluctuates based on plot and whether it makes sense, and, like I said, the last, 40 minutes of the movie, not so much. Once they hit the rapids, it does go downhill. I can't say I laughed that much in the last part.
No, I'm not sure if I would. I would certainly never actively.
And the twist with the truck drivers, that
was pretty obvious.
I don't know if it's obvious, but it just wasn't that clever.
Well, I'm sure I'll get different opinions here, but what do you guys think of the kid, the little one?
Hated him with a passion.
I thought he was fine.
See, this is the thing.
Here's the thing. First of all, halfway through the movie, he gets his comeuppance,
which is probably the best storyline in the movie.
So it's not like they just let him go unpunished for his actions. I don't know, Justin.
But here's the takeaway from that entire scene.
What?
His comeuppance is the sole resolution of it is, you can't fight him. Just beat the ever-loving crap out of him and hope that he gets better.
Sometimes you have to fight back.
Justin, you have a brother? You know how brothers are. Now, you're the older brother.
Correct.
That's very annoyed you
but
for a second.
I'm the middle brother. I've had both older and younger brothers. And, I don't know. That family dynamic seemed to be not completely ridiculous in 2015 especially.
No.
And if you're going to do that, at least try and make it funny. Instead, it's this whole, be a man kind of thing, and he does it in the most... goofy, sissy way possible.
The older brother?
That's the joke of it. That's
the thing.
But it shut him
that
down.
Funny.
Well, that's personal opinion, but it shut him down.
It is subjective, but
you can't deny that.
It's that magically shuts him down.
Honestly,
I think it would.
Honestly,
I feel like it would be spy versus spy after that.
Not necessarily. This little kid, his whole worldview is he can just pick on his older brother because he's a pushover, and all of a sudden he realized how dangerous he can be. I could believe it.
Yeah.
It's you know what?
That
I learned my place.
For me.
And they became friends.
I thought he was fine. Were all of his bullyings funny? No.
Some of them were.
But some of them were.
And it was also another classic case of let's feed a 12-year-old shocking lines and hope that because it's an adorable kid, it's going to be funny. But then again, this movie's basically held together with duct tape, so.
And a few laughs.
I don't know. Yeah, it definitely worked for me and Joe a bit more. All right, up next is Paper Towns. And this is based on the John Green novel. It stars Nat Wolff as Q, who lives next door to his crush, Margot Roth Spiegelman, played by Cara Delevingne. And though they were best buds as kids, as teenage years set in, she was a bit too cool for him, and the two went their separate ways. One night, towards the end of their senior year, though, she sneaks over to Q's house to borrow his car and use him as the getaway driver for a series of revenge plans. The next day, she disappears from town, and Q and his friends, plus Margot's best friend, set out on a quest to find her that takes them from their Florida home to New York. Now, as you guys know, I was pretty excited about this one based on the trailer and how surprisingly good Green's The Fault in Our Stars was last year. I was not as disappointed with it as the glut of bad reviews and poor box office receipts might indicate. I actually did rather enjoy it, largely due to an interesting mystery and strong performances from Wolff and Halston Sage as Margot's best friend, but certainly did not live up to my initial expectations, I can say that.
No A+, though.
It's certainly no A+, no. Margot is an unlikable character who seems to just use people, which may certainly turn people off, but I didn't think getting behind her was at all the point of the movie. Nope. I think getting behind the gang, looking for her, seeing the bonding of those characters, that is the point of the movie. And to that degree, I'm not even sure if I would call it a romance film. It's almost more of a road trip.
Coming of age.
Coming of age
mystery
type
story.
buddy movie.
Yeah.
Which may be a key issue in itself. I do think the movie wants you to think that it's a romance movie.
It's not.
Certainly the trailers made it appear that way. But I think that is one reason that reviews on this movie are quite mixed. Because I think people went into it thinking it was one thing and coming out another. Some of the acting by the supporting players is not that great, and there's some fairly large leaps of logic here. But emotionally, I thought the film was effective. I thought it was funny in parts. I leave Paper Towns with a B. Joe?
You might be surprised. I think Justin might be. I'm pretty much on board with you.
Oh, okay.
I went into this one.
You had zero expectations for those.
I made fun of you for your
Yes, you did.
expectations. These movies are not typically my thing, kind of a teen romance. It's just generally not my thing.
Mm-hmm.
But I was surprised to find it wasn't really romance exactly. It was more of a coming of age story. And I do agree that it has an interesting plot, has some good ideas. I really liked the characters and the performances. I think that was the strongest aspect, especially once they all gather together and they actually go seek her out on the road trip, I think is the best part of the movie. And what really made it stand out for me the most, though, was the ending, because I think that kind of message was not that predictable. It was very different.
No, I love the ending.
For this type of ending, it was very believable. It was realistic, and it's not something that you would find in a film like this or many films of, focusing around characters this age. I think it's an excellent message because, it's just it's about perceptions you have about people, and your idea of love, especially at a particular age, might not be what it really is, and you can learn about yourself from those experiences. And I think anybody that's had any feelings about anyone that were unrealistic expectations can relate to this. It's a very complex idea that pretty much everyone goes through that people don't talk about that much. A crucial aspect of growing up and adolescence. For that alone, it's elevated above most of the films of its type. Great performances. Who had played Quentin?
Nat Wolff.
Nat Wolff.
Very talented.
Really, really good young actor. I don't know if
Yeah.
I've seen him in much else, but he was really good. And I don't mind her eyebrows. I thought they were acceptable.
Her eyebrows are a bit much,
Not
but
much, Performance
I
was
try
good.
not to comment on people's personal appearances.
Which I thought it enhanced her performance just enough. Just
All
enough.
right.
But
Made her that much more mysterious.
I the mysterious brows.
Those eyebrows.
Yes.
Well, not quite a forehead, though. If I could see more of the forehead,
That's your favorite.
that'd be favorite part.
Yeah.
But no, it was a very good movie. Quite a surprise for me. I'm a little above you. B+.
Is that right?
That's right.
Wow. All right, Justin, how about for you?
The best advice I ever got for this movie was actually while I was at the theater picking up my ticket, and the ticket taker, actually a friend of mine, said, "Don't write this one off until it's over, because that's where the major payoff is."
He's right.
And she's right, actually.
She's right.
Oh.
I had a hard time getting into this movie because, quite frankly, I didn't honestly grasp the bizarre fascination the protagonist has for a love interest who I spent the majority of Act 1 finding ways to disprove her theories and personally think that she's manipulative and selfish. However, that's also kind of the point.
I would have been so into
Yeah,
her.
I was gonna say.
She would have been my dream
Which
girl.
Absolutely.
Are you telling me? Oh, yeah.
Which I can't speak too much more about without giving spoilers, but it uses an interesting way to explore the critical theories involving myth in the high school setting in the same way The Fault in Our Stars sort of tackled semiotics. I don't always like it in context because it gives these characters dialogue that just flat out I don't buy them saying in the high school setting. But I do respect that he's trying to do something a little smarter than what you might expect from a high school movie. And for that, I'll leave Paper Towns with a C.
Whoa. Hey, no, I want to, Dan, I know what Dan's going to say. You got to elaborate, because I'm surprised. C seems a little low. It sounded like it was positive to me. Is it because you hated Margot, the main character, for a lot of it? Or
I mean, their entire shenanigans, I was like, disagree, are you kidding? Then I took a second to reflect on it while I exited the movie, which is kind of the point. However, I still found her kind of unlikable, but it was an interesting perspective. Am I necessarily agreeing with it? Do I think it took the most believable angle to explore that twist? I'm not so sure.
Well, Justin,
But-
I'm curious,
sorry.
though. I mean, I can understand if maybe you personally, as a person, wouldn't have found her likable. I can actually understand that, especially from your perspective now. But from that character's perspective and what we know about him, can you understand his fascination with her?
Not really.
You've never liked the wrong person? Well then, praise to you, my friend, because that was my entire everything. Like, growing up, high school, college, I mean...
Look,
people are attracted to the wrong people all the time, and people that are not necessarily likable.
Well, Justin,
I'm well aware of that.
Yeah.
Dan.
How about-
It's more or less a matter of
it's
give me at least one reason to like this person.
you don't
don't
need
have
the
to.
reason. The audience is not who needs to like her. he likes her.
No, I can understand.
That's enough.
There are things about her that are very unlikable. Manipulative, selfish.
Not to him, though.
Absolutely. But I can understand how some people might be fascinated with her. Absolutely. If you're like 17...
I don't think the audience is supposed to like her.
No, I agree. She's not the main point of the movie. So I think don't focus so much on that. It's the idea of her for him that I think is important.
Okay, here's an example. And you'll like this one because it's from one of your favorite movies, Perks of Being a Wallflower. Later on in the movie, around Act 2, the scene where he's supposed to kiss a girl and chooses to go for Emma Watson's character, Sam. Mm-hmm. We see her the way he sees her, and therefore we have a reason to like her. In this, it's from his perspective, she is a total scumbag.
Perks of Being a Wallflower is a different type of story because, first of all, Emma Watson is a great person in that movie. So, I mean, of course he likes her. Why wouldn't he? I liked her.
Well, the similarities, though, I think you could draw from both those is it's kind of the unrequited love. Like, it's somebody that's sort
fair.
of out of your league or maybe not quite right for you. They don't see it. See, for him, I think for Quentin, that's kind of what he's experiencing.
Right.
Really, is like she's not really into him, but that's something I think
He has pined over this woman for his entire life.
Basically.
Okay? And after, don't know how many years, 5-6 years of getting the cold shoulder, she approaches him. You know, yeah, she uses him the whole night, but he doesn't see it like that. He sees it as a big sign. And so he goes on this quest.
No, I get his motivation.
You know?
It's just...
If you get his motivation, I don't understand the problem, I guess.
We're still being forced to come along this journey with a completely unlikable love interest.
She's not on the journey.
She's the destination.
She is the destination.
Yeah.
But we find ourselves stuck on this whole thing where it's like, I'm on this mission to meet this girl again. And none of his friends are like, what's the point of this?
Because they're supporting him.
Because they're supporting him.
Because they know how much he loves her.
No, but at the same time, it's like, does he love her? I mean, that's also the point of the movie.
He thinks he loves her.
Okay, but as an aside, they don't just go on the trip to support him. Didn't you get the whole part at the end of the movie? They went on the trip because they're about to graduate and they're never going to see each other again, maybe.
It's like a bond.
And they
that
want
was-
to bond. That's
That was an
why they
interesting
went.
angle, but I mean, if you're going to go the Ferris Bueller route, at least bring it up earlier, make it meaningful. Instead, it's
right.
like, hey, this is here. Nah.
We're at a crossroads. Joe and I got something completely different from this movie than you got, I think.
Yeah,
so.
I
No,
would-
it's
Justin-
a movie that thinks it's so much smarter than it actually is.
I don't agree.
Justin, maybe it'll be my challenge role. I'm honestly kind of confused.
Wow, yeah, because you give it a B+.
I'm confused.
Obviously, a lot of disagreement on that one. Let's move on to Dragon Ball Z Resurrection F. Joe?
All right. Dragon Ball Resurrection F, or Fakatsu no F, is the 19th animated feature film based on the Dragon Ball Z series, Dragon Ball series, and the 15th to carry the Z branding, so there were 4 Dragon Ball movies without the Z. And I don't know if this is true, but according to Wikipedia, it is the first ever Japanese film to be released in IMAX 3D. Resurrection F is the second film personally supervised for series creator Akira Toriyama following the Battle of the Gods in 2013, so it's kind of a revival of the actual storyline from the series. And the movie basically just depicts the return of the villain Frieza, arguably the most iconic villain from the series, as he attempts revenge on Goku for the second time, as well as the return of the God of Destruction Beerus and his sidekick Whis from Battle of Gods, as Goku and Vegeta continue their training to battle future threats. This movie, I think, was definitely an improvement over Battle of the Gods for sure. I think it had a great balance of humor and action, pretty much what you'd expect. I thought the dialogue was some of the best it's ever been here. I thought they did a great job dubbing it. You can tell that a lot of these voice actors and directors, they've been working on it for almost 2 decades. So some of these people are seasoned. They're big fans of the show, except for apparently the actress that plays Bulma that knows nothing. There was a pre-show that didn't understand that. Lots of callbacks, lots of good in-jokes, a lot of good humor in this one. Toriyama's definitely shifting more towards that. So you're not supposed to take it too seriously. The series is kind of going back to its more self-aware aspects, which is pretty fun. It really made a good time for the fans, and definitely for me as well. But I think it has a pretty good story that enhances Goku and Vegeta's characters still, and it gives some of the supporting characters something to do, which is something I've always kind of been concerned about in some of the movies. It's generally a problem with the series as a whole. Overall, it's very enjoyable, but I still wish that the supporting characters could have had a little more to do, and I did think the fights were actually a little better in Battle of the Gods. They did some CGI things where they kind of slowed things down. I thought it looked cool, it was great animation, but the fights were a little iffy. For the most part, though, I think it's probably the best Dragon Ball Z movie, one of the best Dragon Ball movies for sure. still writing off the fan fight for this one, but I'm going to leave it with an A-. I really enjoyed it. So,
Okay.
as you guys with different opinions, I am curious to see what you guys think about it.
Well,
Dan, I know you know very little, so
yeah,
I'm curious to
I'm
see.
up next here, and I know nothing about. I mean, I know who Goku is.
Good.
I know what Dragon Ball Z is, and I've seen 2 of the episodes at your house. But they were episodes in which Goku was like in bed the whole time. Was he in a coma or something? I forget what was happening.
He had a virus at the
So
time.
like Goku wasn't even in it. You know.
Welcome to Dragon Ball.
I mean,
There's a joke about it in the movie. Couldn't you come to the beginning of the fight for some
yeah,
time?
like what?
Sorry about that.
So for me, this is going to be sort of a
What the hell?
skewed view, as it were, I guess. Watching a movie like this, going in fresh, is a lot worse than, say, going into like the Simpsons movie, because at least the Simpsons are humans and they exist in the real world, you know, ish. These people are like superhumans and they're creatures with these powers. And the first 20 minutes of the movie, everybody's like talking about different things that I have no idea what they're saying. They're referencing like planets and names of villains, and it's like it all went over my head. I'm like, I have no idea what's happening.
It's awesome.
It was not awesome. I was so bored. Nor, of course, do I get any of the many in-jokes, like you said, Joe. Tons of in-jokes, tons of callbacks for the fans. Look, I didn't really expect it to be all that inclusive.
No.
This is clearly a movie for fans of the show. Why would your first Dragon Ball movie be the 19th Dragon Ball movie unless you're doing a podcast about movies? So, okay. So I gotta give it a little bit of a something for that. Obviously, the audience was enjoying it. They laughed at many things that I had no idea what was happening. I do think it was funny in parts. I think the... can you guess who my favorite character was, Joe?
I'm actually not sure. Was it the policeman?
The robot policeman?
The Space Ranger, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, he was
my
awesome.
favorite character. And then the gay sensei was my second favorite.
So Jocko, the space
I enjoy
soldier,
him a lot.
and Whis, the advisor guy.
Yes. I liked both of them very
Both
much.
great characters with some of the best lines.
Yes, they were. My issue with it, though...
Okay.
Just
There's an issue.
Well, it's even from a fan perspective. I wonder, maybe this is how all the episodes are. The end of this movie, like the resolution, seemed like a total cheat, and I hated it. It made me not want to watch the show ever.
Wow.
So for me, I can't really get behind that. But obviously the fans were enjoying it. It's for the fans. I wasn't supposed to like it anyway. I'll leave it with a B.
All right, that's fine. That is definitely
I mean, is that a staple of the show, that's how they kind of resolve things sometimes?
kind of, yeah.
Because that was ridiculous.
Not always, but
well,
sometimes.
it's like you're not really wrong,
Mm-hmm.
but I'm trying to think of a hard. You are right. It's kind of like
They did foreshadow it, though.
they did foreshadow in the
They
movie.
They did. I can't deny that.
Well, and I was joking about it, and while I was watching the movie, but I'll give you a little bit of rebuttal to that. Galaxy Quest, great movie, foreshadowing. Have to go back, do almost the exact same thing at the end of the movie. Not a cheat.
Galaxy Quest is a comedy, though.
Isn't this kind of a comedy?
Well, surprisingly, yes. It had some very funny parts. But I don't think Dragon Ball Z is considered a comedy first.
No, it's not.
So
No.
well, before we continue, Justin, let's hear from you.
No.
You're sort of, I feel like, in between us. You know things, you've seen things, but certainly not the fan Joe is, I don't think.
I'd say that's a pretty
Right?
accurate assessment.
You're sort of somewhere.
I know it's
somewhere in the
I know-
middle.
I know-
Closer to Joe, obviously, than me. But
No, that's correct.
yeah. All right, Justin, go ahead.
But Justin, you're in between us. Let's get that perspective.
This is one that I can respect for being fan service.
Totally. The whole movie's basically fan service.
I mean, that's basically what brought it back. These movies that have become canon, they are in relation to the show. I remember you telling me that a lot of the original movies were just basically fan fiction gone awry.
I started to clap in the theater because it said directly supervised by the creator of the show, which is never the way it is with these things. So thank you. Yeah. You know, was good.
But I think this one also makes up for a couple of the issues I had with Battle of the Gods.
Okay.
For starters, Battle of the Gods didn't even really feel like it should have been a movie. It was more or less one of those like TV reunions you see like 10 years later, like MASH, Goodbye, Farewell, Amen.
The thing is, though, this is probably the first movie I actually felt like a real movie, not like just an episode spinoff.
There's a very theatrical feel to this movie, which I really did like. And if you're going to make one of the textbook villains the staple of a cinematic movie, it might as well be Frieza.
Yeah.
Because everyone remembers him. With that said, I feel like this movie tries to do way too much. Like, in Battle of the Gods, we had one central villain-ish, and that became, like, the whole core area of where it focused on. This one, there's this whole massive Avengers-style face-off with all of his little cronies. Then leading up to the big battle, which takes up the entire latter half of the movie, and then it's over. Some of it individually is great. I loved Jocko?
Jocko, yeah.
Jocko, yeah. Thought he was fantastic. If they made a spin-off about him, I'd probably watch it.
I'd be so on board for that.
Yeah, he has a whole comic. He's another spin-off that takes place in the same universe.
Nice.
So yeah, he's kind of a newer character.
Did enjoy that, but I also felt like because they're trying to do so much, a lot of the animation looks kind of stiff and awkward.
That's the one thing. Some of the fights, they looked epic, but Dragon Ball Z is kind of known for fast, super speed fluidity. This was more blocky.
Very, very blocky. There's payoff later on. I feel like it goes on significantly longer than it should have. But, I mean, I get that's fan service. It's definitely well animated. If they made another one, I'd probably watch it. It's just very difficult to get into for the uninitiated.
Yeah.
I leave with a B-.
It's not bad.
Lower than me, though.
Well, yeah.
I mean, I sort of base half of my grade on, fan reaction. And obviously, everybody in the theater was digging it.
Well, this is what I'm saying.
I didn't expect to know any. I expected to be confused.
I knew you were going to be confused, but did you get the basic idea?
Yeah, I mean, I got the gist of it.
Like, what do you think of Frieza? He's a pretty iconic bad guy in general.
Yeah, he is, but he really bothered me because he could have murdered everyone about 25 different times and just stood there.
See, every
again, I'm sure it's a staple.
Yeah.
But that makes me not want to ever watch the show because that really bothered me. Like, just kill everybody if you're going to kill everybody. It's like the classic Bond villain, like, oh, I'm going to tell you what I'm going to do for an hour, and then, you'll
look at this nice gigantic laser.
Monologues, and it's like, okay, let me explain that. It's just, a lot of times these characters get so powerful, they get arrogant, they show off, they don't think they need to kill people right away. That's just the way they are. It's a flaw. It's just an integral thing, and you're right.
Here's how I reasoned it out. You ready?
Okay.
I reasoned it out that he really wanted to battle Goku one-on-one.
True.
And so obviously he's not going to kill everybody before Goku gets there.
True.
And then once everybody was there, then was the big battle between him and Goku.
Yeah.
Which went, I think, as he planned for a while.
Well, hey, if you thought that was bad, if you watch the show, it's about 19 straight episodes of them fighting. So,
not interested.
Hey, but you know what? Considering the fact you know almost nothing about it, I think that it was okay for you. You seem more engaged with it than I thought. So you were bored with the exposition and we knew nothing was going on.
Oh, yeah. I think I fell asleep in the first, 10 minutes. So I didn't know anything they were talking about or anybody.
But hey, you didn't. I always thought you might hate it, honestly. So I mean,
I thought I might too.
So I'm glad that you thought it was okay.
Yeah.
I will say this much: even if you didn't like something, if you can look and say, okay, this is something that's a lot of history. It was hitting the right notes for the crowd.
I think so. Yeah.
Like really a big time. There was a lot of energy in there, so I think it did a lot of good things right, and I think we can agree something was right.
And I think we can agree that it is a fan service only movie. And
totally.
If you are new to Dragon Ball, don't start here.
No,
this is not the one.
No, you said it best. For uninitiated, 19th movie is probably not the best
That's
place
not
to
where you
start.
want to lead off. Okay, well, up next we have our home media moment, and that is Boy Meets Girl.
Not the show.
What's that?
Not the show.
Not the show. No, that's Boy Meets World.
Yeah.
Anyway, Boy Meets Girl is an American independent romance film written and directed by Eric Schaefer, who also wrote and directed the Ben Stiller film If Lucy Fell from the 90s. That's how I know him, among other things. It stars Michelle Hendley as Ricky, a young transgender woman who was born a boy and strives to be a fashion designer. Ricky has her own semi-popular YouTube channel, and her best friend Robbie, played by Michael Welch, has been by her side since they were young boys in school. At her coffee shop job, Ricky meets a beautiful, engaged girl named Francesca, played by Alexandra Tertian, and the two fall for each other as Ricky becomes jealous, and it puts everyone's relationship in jeopardy. With transgender status being such a hot topic these days, it's definitely time we got a love story featuring a trans person at the helm, and Boy Meets Girl tackles the subject with honesty, real characters, and interesting questions that face that community every single day. Henley, herself a transgender woman, brings a rawness and emotional center to this film that I'm not sure somebody that hasn't been there could do. Now, unfortunately, most of our other castmates are not so adept. The script also veers into very soapy CW-type drama, which is unfortunate because it doesn't really balance with the rest of the film. But Boy Meets Girl is certainly an original and quite welcome love story, and for me, it is a B+. Joe, let's hear from you.
Well, pretty much agree with what you said, though, Dan. I have to confess, there were some aspects of the script I didn't like. The CW-ness I thought was not me.
I really teetered on a B, but her performance kind of put me above. But yeah, the script had some issues.
I'm glad you told me, because I admittedly just watched this right before the show, so I did not know if that was an actual transgender person.
Yeah,
that was great.
The nude scene is legitimate.
Well, I thought that's impressive.
Yeah.
And I thought the performance was good. I do like the subject matter. It does feel honest. I do think that it explores some things that aren't discussed, but once again veers into some kind of standard storytelling at the same time. I feel like this movie definitely could have been awesome, but at the end of the day, it was just decent. I leave it with a B-.
Okay. Justin, how about for you?
I have to respect a studio for being willing to come up with a movie like this and handling it in a way that's both mature and interesting. Unfortunately, it's the all-too-familiar I'm in love with my best friend romantic comedy premise that becomes its complete and utter downfall. Henley's performance is great. However, it's, as you mentioned, Dan, her side characters that really become flimsy, cardboard, and nowhere near as compelling as she is. Which leads to a number of very soapy, very hammy scenes. There are some good laughs to be had. The drama works very well later on, particularly at the end with a certain scene. And Henley is a lot of fun as the main character. I just wish it had a better story to go with it. I leave it with a B-.
Yeah, I do agree. I mean, the story itself is sort of standard, but I mean, this is sort of what sets it apart from everything. You know, there's that wrinkle with Francesca's fiance and his history. You know, I thought that was interesting. Her little brother was really a bad actor.
I hated him.
He was the worst part of the movie.
So much.
And
it's terrible.
Kind of bummed me out.
Terrible.
I actually wanted to see more of her relationship with her father.
I was going to say, so there were some really good plot points there. How she struggled in terms of being a transgender woman.
Yeah, I would have liked to see more of that than just the video from her past, let's say.
I also feel like, though, at the same time, it could be very much a less is more kind of thing. But what I thought was really interesting was how open her father was about it.
I know, that's why I wanted to see more with that, because I thought that was very interesting. I know it wasn't really his story, but see, I think that's something that makes this movie interesting. This movie has the transgender part as one of the main components, but this isn't I'm a transgender person and here is everything I've gone through in my entire life. Like, it's not about that. It is at its core a romance movie. So as much as we would have liked to see more with, you know, her and her father, or her struggle, you know, growing up with that.
But here's the thing, Dan. Yes, it's a romance movie, but the selling point is it's a transgender romance movie.
I don't know if that's true.
Maybe.
It's the main reason it's getting as much positive reception as it's been getting.
The transgender issue is definitely, you know, big.
I mean, let's be honest. If the transgender element wasn't the main selling point, this would be a formulaic romantic comedy that probably wouldn't get much higher than a C.
No, but that's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that her being a transgender person, it is involved in the romance portion, and that is right what sets this movie apart. But the movie itself isn't all about her being transgender. It's a romance, so it's about the three of them. I mean, yes, that's the hook, quote unquote, the hook for the movie. Sure, I'll give you that.
Yeah.
But you didn't like those elements, though, right? The more cheesy CW aspects of the drama that were pretty.
It wasn't the best script.
Some of the supporting.
Yeah, it wasn't the best script, but I appreciate the honest way that it was tackled.
Yeah,
you know,
that's definitely bold,
right? And no, obviously, Justin, if she wasn't transgender, then it would be every movie ever in the romance department.
Basically.
Right, I mean, so I agree, and it might have been nice to delve more into that, but I don't think that that's what the point of the movie was.
No, it's not. However, I feel like if it's one of those things that if you're going to get it, if that's going to be your main area that sets you apart from every other cliche rom-com that comes out, we get 40 different flavors a year, you can't just skirt around the edges.
You're not entirely wrong, but at the same time, I feel like instead of Fault in Our Stars, okay, she doesn't, she has cancer. That's their wrinkle.
But literally, if you took that out of it, it's pretty standard.
Exactly. Yeah, I'm not disagreeing with that. I'm just saying I don't think that's the direction they wanted it to go in. Well, let's move on to our top 5, and this is in honor, of course, of Mr. Tom Cruise from Mission Impossible Rogue Nation and many, many other great things. So let's start with Joe on the top 5 Tom Cruise performances.
Right. This was a tough one. Because I actually think Tom Cruise is a great actor.
Yes.
And I think he's got a lot of great films. I realize that I love a lot of Tom Cruise's movies. But this is not necessarily top 5 Tom Cruise movie list.
Correct.
I was trying to go by performances I felt exemplified the best aspects of how much variety he has. Because, to be honest, Tom Cruise generally plays a variety of himself in most of his movies. Which is fine. He does it well. But that's most of his movies. So I tried to be a little different than that. That being said, number 5 is Joel Goodson from Risky Business. Now, basically the first big Tom Cruise role, but it was kind of before he came into his own and became the standard Tom Cruise role in most of his movies. Somebody young, vulnerable, going through a lot. I thought he really became this character that was very relatable at a time in life. When I watched it, I really connected with this movie. And of course, Rebecca De Mornay.
Oh, yeah.
That's amazing. Great performance, good movie. Number 4, Justin might appreciate this. This is a little more aligned with the standard Cruise role, but I think it's a little more refined, and it still has some difference. It's Nathan Algren from The Last Samurai. Really great movie. Really thought this tortured, darker character going through a lot. Definitely balanced by Ken Watanabe, but I think Cruise definitely holds his own here. Number 3, I think you guys will both like this one. I had to put it on. Les Grossman from Tropic Thunder.
Oh, absolutely.
What so different, because I don't think I had seen Tom Cruise in much for a couple years. I saw this movie Tropic Thunder, which I thought I was going to hate. Of course, I loved it. And when Tom Cruise showed up, it blew my mind. It's amazing how he became this radically different comedic character. Very different, not a pretty boy anymore. Great performer. And number 2, talked about it recently, was Frank T.J. Mackey from Magnolia. Should have won an Oscar for it. Great performance. Amazing. Very complicated. Yeah,
all right.
It's pretty good top 4 so far.
Yeah, I'm excited to hear the rest. Justin, how about for you?
All right, so to kick mine off with an honorable mention, Les Grossman, Tropic Thunder.
Oh.
Really big change of pace. Loved it. Not so sure the spinoff was ever a good idea, and who knows if it's actually still happening or not. I hope it isn't. But I'm sad this one was a big deal for a couple of years after it came out, and then no one talks about it anymore. I think I made a Les Grossman reference 2 or 3 months ago to one of my coworkers who's in high school, and she just looked at me like I was from Mars.
Well,
they were probably 5 when the movie came out. It's almost a decade old now.
But here's the actual list. Number 5, Dr. William Harford, Eyes Wide Shut.
Good one.
Now, a lot of people have very divisive opinions about this movie, but what I do love about this is it showcases Kubrick's perfectionism and trying to get the best performances out of all of his actors.
Including Nicole Kidman.
Including Nicole Kidman, who gives one of her most unique performances. Mm-hmm. And Cruise is no slouch here either. No. I like this one because we think of Cruise as this much more outgoing actor. Obviously, in his action movies, in his dramas. This one, it's a much more restrained performance. And I like that. It adds more of a in-depth analysis of what's actually going on. I feel like that's a crucial component to understanding this movie.
With that one, it's definitely less is more.
Number 4 is Frank T.J. Mackey, Magnolia. We've talked very much at length about this movie on the show. I won't make it go on any longer than it already has. But this was such a bold performance from Cruise. I think it's hands down one of his darkest roles.
He put it out there, though. He really did.
But he really went the mile and then some. My only regret is I wish he was in it more. I think he has maybe 40 minutes of screen time in a 3-hour movie. Mm-hmm. My number 3 is Lestat from Interview with the Vampire.
I considered that one.
When we think of Interview with the Vampire, we think much more Brad Pitt or Anne Rice, but I think Cruise's performance in this goes really gets underappreciated, and he really gets into the mindset of this age-old vampire that's both charismatic and manipulative at the exact same time.
You know, that is a good performance from Cruise, but I guess my standards for Lestat, because I'm a pretty big fan of the character in the books,
yeah.
I never quite felt like that movie matched up to the awesomeness of the book, and I don't know.
Well, no, because the book went in a bunch of twisted directions, but
I always felt like that movie was kind of like very Hollywoodized in that sense. So, but Cruise's performance was good.
And my number 2 is Joel Goodson, Risky Business.
Nice.
I feel like Cruise had his best stuff when he was younger. The Color of Money, Risky Business.
Taps.
Yes, Taps. The Outsiders to some extent. This really showed how much talent he had and how much further I feel like we all could see him going. He was funny. He was compelling. He was likable, and I really wish he would get back to that more. Sure, I love the action hero Cruise. Most people do. He does his own stunts, which is kind of awesome. But I like the down to earth Cruise, which I don't think we get nearly enough of.
Okay, well, my honorable mention, Justin just mentioned this film, actually, that is Vincent Laria from The Color of Money. This was the first time, I think, that people really saw a solid, dramatic lead performance from Cruise. The Outsiders, I think, is certainly more of a collaboration.
Definitely.
You know, and even if you picked a star, he wouldn't be the main attraction.
Is that a Scorsese film or something?
No,
I
Coppola.
think so, yeah,
Coppola.
Yeah.
I've never seen it.
Oh, it's so good.
It's a very good movie.
Yeah, I've actually seen both versions. The extended as well is very good.
Cool.
And Cruise is great in it, but Color of Money, I think, is where we really first saw a straight-up dramatic lead performance from Cruise, and he kills it. My number 5 goes a bit more recent, and that is Major William Cage from Live, Die, Repeat.
No.
This is... Joe hates when I call it that. Edge of Tomorrow is the real title of this movie.
Thank you.
But no, this was, I don't dislike some of the recent Cruise actioners as much as some, like a Jack Reacher, Oblivion. I know Justin is not a fan really of those performances. I think they were decent movies, but Edge of Tomorrow was so solid, and not for a second does it get boring, even though Tom Cruise is doing the same thing over and over and over again. He just does it 100% every single time, and that's classic Cruise, really.
The movie's just so good.
It's so good, and I feel like that is one that won't be talked about probably in another year or two, which is unfortunate, except by us. Number 4 for me is Charlie Babbitt from Rain Man. Now, this is, for me, the first time I ever actually saw Tom Cruise. This was a favorite in my house growing up, and for him to stand toe-to-toe with Dustin Hoffman in this entire movie was very, very impressive. I thought he nailed it. Is the character all that likable? No, probably not, but I thought he gave a great performance. Number 3 for me, just like Joe, is Les Grossman from Tropic Thunder. This came out at a time, Joe, you nailed it. We hadn't seen Cruise really in a while. I mean, I guess he did War of the Worlds maybe 2 years earlier or something.
But that wasn't exactly the most solid.
It wasn't.
Not
and at
quite.
the same time, that was in the wake of his couch jumping on Oprah. The Scientology cruise sort of started coming out, and people weren't sure, is this guy crazy? Like, what's going on here? And he went for gold in this totally off-the-wall comedic performance. And I think it made people realize, okay, well, guess what?
Sometimes you have to take a step back.
It doesn't matter what his religion is. Who cares? He's a great actor, And I think Mel Gibson maybe had that same issue around that same time too, which is unfortunate because he's also a good actor.
Yeah.
Number 2 for me is Ethan Hunt, and the film I chose was Mission Impossible: Ghost Protocol. Like I said earlier on the show, it is my favorite. But not only that, it is, as I sort of mentioned in my review, I think the one that sort of cemented the camaraderie between all of the cast. Him and Peg, him and Renner. So I thought he did a really, really great job here. And like Joe said, the balance in this movie is really great. And so we got to see sort of all aspects of Cruise at once. We saw the action star, the drama, certainly some comedy. So that is my number 2. Joe?
Yeah. Well, I don't know.
There's so many choices. I feel like I might know your number one, but
Well, I mean,
it's anyone's guess.
Because I forgot to give an honorable mention, I will, because you guys did, I have to, just because you didn't mention it. One I was considering, it was a little similar to his character from Eyes Wide Shut, but the character he portrayed in Vanilla Sky, I thought was a great performance from him as well, for sure. Definitely more introspective too. But anybody want to guess my number one, just for the fun of it? You said there are a lot of choices.
There are a lot of choices, but I haven't heard anyone say Collateral yet, and I know you guys are both fans. I've never seen it.
What do you think, Justin?
I'd say Jerry Maguire, but that's a cop-out.
I definitely don't think it's Jerry Maguire. I'm between Collateral and Ethan Hunt myself.
Okay. Ethan Hunt, I considered it, but I think as good as those movies are, I think that's more standard Cruise, to be honest. I don't think he really breaks the mold with any of those for a top five, personally.
Maybe not.
But you're right. Instead,
I think it's quite... I mean...
He's done
you can't
5 movies.
You can't think of Mission Impossible, certainly, without thinking of him.
True.
You know?
That is true, so I can understand that. But you are right, though, Dan, your guess. Number one is Vincent from Collateral. Not only is this yet another fantastic performance from Cruise, but it's radically different than any other character he's ever played, because it's the only movie where he plays a straight-up evil person. And a complicated one.
Not counting Interview with the Vampire?
Lestat's kind of more complicated. The ambiguity of Vincent kind of makes him more... He's kind of defined as the hitman, and that's pretty much just what he is. We don't really learn too much about him specifically. Lestat, there's this whole... he didn't really want to be a vampire, struggle with it. In the sequel, Lestat is... The point is, the character he's playing, I think, is more evil here, for sure. I think in terms of that, not necessarily not complex, but just so dark, so gritty. You never see that in any other Tom Cruise performance, and it's really chilling. It's an excellent film. If people don't talk about it enough, I don't know if they do, but it's definitely it's a great movie, great performance, and honestly, probably one of my favorite Jamie Foxx movies too. Great performance from him. Just between the two of them, some of the best chemistry in that tightly enclosed thriller. Amazing.
All right.
Easily
Justin?
number one. Easily.
Well, my number one is also Vincent from
You
Collateral.
guys both love this movie.
I mean, yes, it is one of the few times Cruise has ever played a villain, but what I like about this is it's very much an ambiguous villain. Like, yes, what he's doing is inherently evil, but the way he goes about his character, there's a lot of ways you could argue anti-hero implications.
Possibly.
Which I think is one of the most interesting characters of the 2000s.
It's definitely it's kind of one of those ideas where this person is obviously doing really bad things, but from his own perspective, you might be able to kind of understand why. Mm-hmm. So it's kind of disturbing in that sense, But he seems strangely. You said ambiguity. It's like he seems like a real person, but it's so chilling. It's almost like he's not.
Like some of the actions he does later on, in terms of Jimmy Foxx's involvement, could have anti-heroic implications.
That is true. You are right.
Without giving too much away.
That is true.
Fox got the nomination, but it is a really brave role for Cruise.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, as you figured, my number one is Jerry Maguire. How could not be?
I figured.
To my top 5 of all time. Now, I mean, look, the guy certainly deserved his nomination for this film, and he's been nominated for others. I believe Magnolia was one of them.
Correct.
He just didn't win.
And Born on the 4th of July.
And Born on the 4th of July was the other. But, I mean, this movie would not be anything without Tom Cruise. He makes this whole movie. Cuba Gooding's great, obviously. Everybody knows that. And the two of them are great together. But I think if you stuck anybody else in this lead role, it's one of those situations where you would not have the same movie. We just did this for my pick not too long ago, so I don't need to really go into too much detail, but there it is. Great movie, great performance. Jerry Maguire.
Pretty much agree. I mean, I don't really like the movie or the character as much as you do, but I do think...
It would be hard to.
No, it's one of your favorites, and that's perfectly fine. I think it's a good movie. I think it's a good performance. I think I've seen more dynamic characters for Cruise. Like, this is still
I would say you're right. Like, it's probably quote unquote standard Cruise. You're not wrong.
But it's the best of standard.
Yeah, I mean,
Cruise.
If you're right, every standard has to have their
top tier.
Right, their top tier, their crowning achievement, and it's Jerry Maguire for sure.
George Clooney, it's like Descendants or Up in the Air. Like it's
I would say,
it's standard Clooney, but it's
the best of the standard Clooney.
So I can get it. It's not really what I would go for, but it's a good performance. No love for Zellweger, though she didn't make that movie for you. Them cheeks,
come on.
No?
she's fine, but anybody could have played her. Not everybody could have played Jerry Maguire. All right, well, just two this week instead of a triple feature, just a double feature of older films. And we started off with an interesting wrinkle on a new classic. That is X-Men Days of Future Past. They just released on Blu-ray the Rogue Cut, which adds about 17 minutes of additional footage. So, Justin, let's hear about X-Men Days of Future Past, the Rogue Cut.
Set well into the future, humanity is ravaged by anti-mutant machines called Sentinels, bringing the human race to the brink of extinction. Desperate to come up with a plan, the remaining members of the X-Men, and to some extent the Brotherhood, resolve to send Wolverine, played by Hugh Jackman, into his body from the past to prevent their future by attempting to keep Mystique, played by Jennifer Lawrence, now on her own, from falling into the hands of Bolivar Trask, played by Peter Dinklage, who would use her DNA to ultimately create the Sentinels, and therefore the demise of humanity as we know it. This is a movie that serves as both a gigantic retcon, cough cough Ratner, and a love letter to fans. Brings forth the best elements of both franchises that we originally loved, and the promise of a really good reboot, hinting at what the future may have in store. Now, it's important to note that with this version, as Dan mentioned, we did watch the Rogue Cut, which features a subplot involving getting Rogue, played by Anna Paquin, into the picture. It's compelling and it's interesting. It adds an extra action sequence, but I didn't really feel like it added much. I feel like the theatrical cut more or less stands on its own. Some of the extra footage on the side is like a few scenes run on a little bit longer, adds a little bit of extra quirk. It's not bad. I don't regret that it's there. It's just I feel like you could watch the theatrical and the Rogue Cut and get more or less the exact same experience. But with all that said, the future of the X-Men franchise is bright, and I can almost forgive Bryan Singer. I still leave it with an A.
Joe?
Well, we did talk about this movie last year, basically. It's almost exactly the same, and I still stand on it. I love this movie. I think that it was kind of an awesome culmination of all the best aspects of the X-Men movies, while still trying to bring some of those kookier elements from the comics and classic storylines to a broader audience, which is what I think these superhero movies are about. And the X-Men franchise, when it's at its best, is really the best example of that. I think even more than the Marvel movies, because it's not afraid to go a little darker and pull, it doesn't pull too many punches. And so from a storytelling perspective, these characters are some of the best. That's why X-Men's compelling. Hugh Jackman, great Wolverine. He continues to impress me more and more. I really think it's amazing that they were able to pull this off and make it so very much like the comics while still adding different aspects to their different storylines. You're right, it is kind of continuation, sequel to First Class, passing the torch while having those classic elements, but also rebooting aspects of these movies that people hated. It kind of, I don't want to say it saved the franchise because that's basically First Class did that, but this movie kind of makes everything right. It literally does, and it's almost like they set out not just to make a good movie, but specifically to make the fans happy as well and keep the franchise going. In terms of the Rogue Cut, those extra scenes, I did like them. I thought it was kind of cool to see that Rogue storyline because I do like Rogue, and it made some elements of what was happening make more sense, like when Kitty Pryde gets injured, how exactly they healed her, stuff like that. There's a couple little moments where, just to give, I won't spoil exactly, but there's a certain character when they're getting attacked by the Sentinels. This character kind of saves himself in the original, but gets saved by someone else. It kind of shows how far his characters come, but I liked it. Mm-hmm. That adds a little extra. So I don't know if all the scenes work. Like there is a scene with Beast and Raven I thought was weird and didn't quite make sense and was a little clunky. I liked what they were going for, but you could kind of take or leave some of those few little things that were added. It's kind of mixed for me. I'm going to leave it the same grade. It's still an A. The only reason I can't give it an A+ is because it is kind of nitpicky. But the Sentinels, I'm still waiting to get them right. I know we got the first version, and then we get the ultimate version, but there's a part of me that just kind of wants to see that intimidating.
We need the present day Sentinels.
We need that awesome combination of intimidating but still very goofy, and we haven't quite gotten there. I don't know if we ever will.
Okay. Here's the thing, Joe. To offer a brief counterpoint.
Yeah.
It's not a matter of goofy. It's a matter of goofy but translates well to screen. Which honestly, if you're referring to the Sentinels that we saw from the '90s cartoon, they're not going to work.
Maybe not, but they could get closer. I mean, I'm just saying the Sentinels that we saw in the movie were less than impressive to me. And the ones from the future, at the end of the day, they were fairly generic robots. Mm-hmm. And they weren't Sentinels to me. So To be fair, I think most people would agree with that. I'm still going to leave it with that. Rogue cut doesn't really affect it too much either way.
Okay.
Some things I liked about it, some things I didn't, but still good.
I mean, because we've talked about this sort of at length between the original review and then in our top 20s, et cetera, best of the summer, I sort of focused my review mainly on the Rogue cut changes. Mm-hmm. I think either way, it is great to watch this film again. This is my third time around. I saw it twice in theaters last summer.
Nice.
But I think it was edited appropriately the first time around. I mean, the Rogue cut scenes didn't really bring the pace down per se. I just don't think that most of them are necessary. I think that there are like little tweaks in scenes that are cool. Like when we first go to Quicksilver's house, there's like a little exchange that's cool, that's different, you know. I think you leave a couple of those touches in, but I feel like maybe we didn't need the whole Rogue storyline, the whole Extra Beast storyline. I will go even so far as to say that I applaud the editors of the film in the first place to excise some of the scenes with Jennifer Lawrence in them. Because, I mean, she's one of the biggest stars on the planet, obviously. Why wouldn't you have her in your movie as much as possible?
Oh, yeah.
Because it's not necessary for the story every time.
You need it tight.
Exactly. And so, I definitely like the original cut more than the Rogue cut. I can't say I was bored with the extra time, but it brings it to almost a 2.5-hour feature. Which I think might be sort of demanding a lot from the audience. I do think, obviously, all the things still work about it. Great performances. Jackman is amazing. Fantastic story. The effects are really great. You know, I do think, like I said originally, it's a little bit inside. You know, if this was your first X-Men movie, it's certainly confusing. And honestly, the opening scene in itself is still kind of confusing. I mean, not to me now, but like the first time I saw it, I just, you know, because everybody disappears and you're like, what the hell's going on, you know? And then it's not till, you know, a little bit later on in the movie that you kind of get on board. I think it maybe goes into the action a little bit too soon.
Archie did it. Got those like teletubbies on the ceiling. That's there you go.
Archie typically does battle Sharknado and stuff.
See, he's got the skills, man. He saved them.
Mad
he is
skills
up to the task.
Save the world. But no, I agree. I don't think you need necessarily the extra stuff in the Rogue cut. I'll leave the film with an A-, even with the Rogue cut. However, I would highly recommend watching the original over the Rogue.
Mm-hmm. I agree. I don't really think it's necessary.
It's interesting.
It's nice, but you don't really need it.
Yeah.
It's sort of like if you really like the original cut, this is an option.
Well, I watched the Rogue cut with a couple friends of mine, and they said they liked it more. So I feel like if you are a big fan and you really embrace everything X-Men,
you want more.
Just eat it up. You want more, and the extra time doesn't. Yeah, then it's fine for you. Get it. Like if you're a hardcore enough fan, you'll love it. If not, it doesn't really.
You're not missing much.
Right. I would agree with that, I guess.
But it's nice.
It's nice. Cool. It's nice to have it as an option. But you're right. I would say, you know, if you're an average X-Men fan, don't bother with the Rogue cut. You just watch the original.
Yeah.
It's pretty solid the way it is.
Yeah.
But all right. So up next is our old classic. Joe, you picked Dark City.
That's right. Dark City is a 1998 American neo-noir science fiction film directed by Alex Proyas. The screenplay was also written by Proyas and Liam Dobbs and our old buddy David S. Goyer. The film stars Rufus Sewell, Kiefer Sutherland, Jennifer Connelly, and William Hurt. Sewell plays John Murdoch, an amnesiac man who has found himself suspected of a murder. Murdoch attempts to discover his true identity and clear his name while on the run from the police and a mysterious group known only as the Strangers, who seem to have a strange control over the city where it is always eternal night and everything is not quite as it seems. I always liked this movie basically for its style. It's kind of another example where I love strong atmospheres, and if it's kind of dark, you know, it's my thing. Plus, you add in the sci-fi elements. If it's done well, I'm hooked. The effects range from really cool and unique to kind of dated, but it all kind of adds to the strange style of the movie, and it really adds to the atmosphere. I really like the neo-noir style. I think it's one of the best neo-noir films, really noir-esque films that's come out in a while. It's one of the most recent ones I can remember. And the sci-fi fusion in general I really like as well. I think the performances are good. They certainly fit with the tone of the movie. And I enjoy some of the really classic sci-fi themes and the big questions regarding identity, which help influence many films that followed literally a year or two afterwards, like The Matrix, most notably. Other than the narration at the beginning, which kind of spoils everything, I mean, I kind of like it in a way, but I can understand people's problem with that. That's something they did fix in the director's cut. But it kind of just set the cool atmosphere for the movie. So I kind of let that slide. Really, overall, it's a very cool and unique sci-fi movie. Maybe not for everybody, but I leave it with an A-.
Okay. Yeah, well, Joe, like most of your sci-fi movies that you've brought for OCT, Dune, 12 Monkeys, the visual component of Dark City is just striking. You know, you said it. You're all about the atmosphere, and this movie has a ton of great atmosphere. The story, however, does get a little bit tangled, and I do think that of the ones that you've brought to the table, this is one of the less accessible ones to a moderate sci-fi fan.
I admit,
yeah,
this is like Dune. It's a very specific.
You gotta know what you're getting into, and it's funny you mentioned the Matrix because obviously, I mean, those parallels are clear.
One or two,
but it's funny to me. It's as if the Matrix took all of the basic ideas from Dark City and just mainstreamed them.
That's exactly what it is.
Because you can't say the Matrix is inaccessible. I mean, it was a huge hit.
No, but it's taking things, and it's kind of funny. It really does take some of the same ideas, but you're right. It makes it
basically
mainstream.
mainstreams it.
It's like it's the same stuff.
I guess it depends on your definition of accessible. Because I can tell you, growing up in the 2000s, I spent many a time trying to explain to people much older than me what the heck the Matrix was about.
Well, for like the generation of the time that it was a big hit for. And maybe, I don't know, I think what made The Matrix work, obviously, is kind of, there were a lot of films around this time that did this very same thing, As It Stands, 13th Floor, Truman Show. There's a lot of that
is true,
followed this very interesting idea about reality and this fake world. And The Matrix, I think what really did it, Justin, to make it accessible, it's the same sci-fi elements, really, but the action. I think that stylized big action is what sets it all.
The Wachowski brothers action.
So it's honestly about as cerebral as most of those other movies, and I think like this one, I think they're better written movies technically in terms of the magic.
I would say this is probably better written than The Matrix,
but I mean,
but much less accessible.
Matrix is, I get that, but yeah, good point. Good point.
But yeah, I mean, the acting is good. Always good to see early Connolly, early-ish Sutherland.
Decent Hurt performance finally.
Yeah, he was fine.
Okay, not the accidental tourist.
Not the accidental tourist. He was fine.
Well, no.
So I give Dark City a B. Justin?
Neo-noir is usually a 50-50 shot. Sci-fi noir, the few that there honestly are, usually fall into the category of really, really good, Blade Runner, or fairly mediocre. Renaissance, if you don't know about it, you don't need to.
I've never heard of it.
Think Blade Runner, but much, much more boring.
Blade Runner was good.
Blade Runner is very good.
Blade Runner is pretty top-notch.
But Dark City is the one exception to the rule. And I think that's and I really do like that.
Okay.
The story clearly pays its respects to influential sci-fi, the surreal industrial expressionism from one of my favorite filmmakers for its slang in his movie Metropolis, and some of the more contemporary sources of the time, such as David Lynch, with certain camera angles and very, very quirky characters. Though, with that said, I feel like Dark City sometimes becomes overly weird for not much more motivation than because it can.
I could agree with that.
Particularly at the end when they throw in a bunch of really, really, really dated CGI. But ultimately, I would say it's probably one of the most underrated sci-fi pieces that honestly does get better on multiple viewings, and I originally gave it a B. I'm raising it to a B+.
Oh, nice. Okay, so not as much. I just always got a feering there was some animosity there. Maybe I misinterpreted it.
No, it's one of those movies that it's got a cult following
that pisses you off.
But it's sort of like Nightmare Before Christmas. It has a massive cult following, and I admit it's a good movie. But I also find myself asking, is it really that good, people?
The following for this movie is nothing like Nightmare Before Christmas.
Search IMDb, search most.
Work at Hot Topic 1 second of your life.
I didn't say that. I didn't say they were on par with each other.
I never even heard of Dark City, so take that for what it's worth, Justin.
It's not.
I wouldn't say it's of that caliber.
It's not quite huge, but in certain sci-fi circles, this is like, oh yeah, you mentioned Dark City.
It's pretty much worshipped.
Yeah, it's cool. It's one of the most successful neo-noir, I think, sci-fi movies.
Honestly. Oh, I would believe that.
I mean, you're right. It is kind of hard to pull off, actually.
It's just one of those things you don't think about, but then when they do it, it's strange because it either works or it doesn't, and it really depends on what sort of story you're trying to tell.
Before we end, though, Dan, I'm curious.
Yeah.
This director did The Crow. How would you compare this to The Crow? His biggest success.
Okay, The Crow is a cult movie.
Big time.
Right there.
Bigger than Dark City.
Another one of the Hot Topic entries. But
much bigger than Dark City, I think.
But judging by the two films, from what you remember.
I mean, to be honest, I saw The Crow in theater, so it's been a good 22 years. So, I mean...
Okay, so this is more a hatred of the fan base then than
Well, I hate the Crow fan base. It's the worst. Well, no, Nightmare Before Christmas fan base is the worst.
There are some
be
fan
realistic.
Or Twilight.
there are fan bases that are worse.
You're right.
I stand
but,
corrected.
But, I was in the thick of it when The Crow came out, and it was,
I know it's
never
right.
wanted to watch it again. I could see that it is directed in a similar manner, though.
Mm-hmm.
From what I do remember of The Crow, it's very, very dark, very atmospheric for sure. I don't know. I mean, it's hard for me to say.
You'd have to watch it again.
I'd have
Judge.
to watch The Crow again.
Fair
Yeah.
enough. I didn't realize it'd been that long.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. Boy, you got some of the classics in theaters though. That's awesome.
Yeah, I did what I could back in the day.
I was like,
Cool World,
Oh, wow.
the original Buffy
that's
movie.
the only Bakshi
seen it.
movie you've
I've seen
seen is
good
Cool
ones.
World.
Correct.
Oh my god, we gotta change that.
Brad Pitt was in it.
I know.
What a guy.
And
But this is good.
Dark City is good. Dark City
Yeah.
is a good
Yes.
movie.
Dark City I like. So it was originally a B for you as well, Justin.
That's correct.
Okay.
It's definitely a movie you should watch again.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind watching it again.
Like it's
for sure.
You can get more out of it each time.
Yeah.
I think.
Oh, yeah, I'm sure. Because I'm, I don't know. It is a very intricate story.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm sure there's plenty of things to be missed the first time around. But all right, well, that is going to wrap it up for this week. Like I said, there's no Oscar A to Z this week. We're going to do a mini-sode featuring the entire trilogy of Back to the Future. Back to the Future, the original, was the only one nominated for anything, so...
Crying shame.
It is a crying shame, so we're going to put a stop to that and talk about all three of the films in a mini-sode coming up. And next week actually will be our last week of doing New Classic as well. So in subsequent weeks it'll be a double feature every time here at the end of the show. Old Classic and Oscar nominee only.
It's going to be a very different life.
Yeah, well, we're about to hit the 2-year mark, and so by that point, everything that we would run on New Classic we've all talked about. So let's focus on the Old Classic and the Oscar A to Z instead. Trying to get these shows down a little bit less. Maybe one of these will be an hour someday.
We've gotten really close a few
We've gotten
times.
close. This one did not make the cut, unfortunately.
But you know what? To be fair, look at the lineup. There was a lot to talk about.
There was a lot to talk about. That's very true. All right, so that is going to do it. Thank you so much for listening. We have our Facebook group up and running, which is Film Fanatics with an exclamation point. Twitter feed at Film Fanatics Pod. You can, of course, subscribe to our channel. Joe's got the Merlin channel. Of course, you can subscribe to that. And that's it. We'll see you back here for the mini-sode and then next week's brand new episode. Thanks so much for listening. Live, die, repeat.